Call,
Everybody read them all the way through, that's the question.
I'm like halfway.
Everybody read them all the way through, because if you didn't, then we can't approve them, you know?
Right.
all right, well, let's call the meeting to order, the Wednesday, February 19th, 2020 Community Preservation Act Committee meeting. These are the minute meeting, is that what? Okay. So, jump into our agenda item number 1, which is review of the December 9th, 2019, and the 1/22/20 minutes. If we've had a chance to review them, if we're not comfortable with where we are on one or the other, we can table it. I don't know how people feel about.
Remember if I read the December ones?
They're both attached to that email, correct?
So, Meg, did you
So,
send?
do you want to take a minute and read them, or do we want to table it?
No, because you didn't attach anything.
Her and I are
Right
reading
after you,
through
Oh, I
like,
didn't
there's
see it.
nothing attached.
122. So, if anybody wants to read through the December,
Yeah, I made it. You look good to me.
If you have a copy of, those are the minutes.
Just to me.
I replied to everybody.
oh, this is December?
Those are the December 9th. Excuse me.
Anybody else want a copy? December? I'll read December then.
I see that there should be funds, not fines. Sorry.
Thank you.
Funds, not fines, under number 3B.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was that comment? I couldn't.
She had a typo for 3B. It says, to clarify that fines can be used, it should be funds.
Oh,
Thank you.
For 4D, parent is PEIRENT.
1R.
Yeah, and it's an ENT, yeah.
maybe I had a chance to read them. Any other comments, changes?
For December.
Want to make a motion?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes for December as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. What do we want to do with the January 22nd? Do you want to wait? Let's table that.
I did finish it.
Do you have comments you want
I didn't find anything.
Well, then make a motion to accept.
Did everybody else read it?
to? I read them. I did read it on my phone while I was waiting. I didn't have any comments on it. I thought they looked good.
I did. Okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the January 22nd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. Okay, item number 2, update on the fiscal year 19 contracts, 43 Canal Street and the Annex lanterns. What have you got, Amy?
Okay, yeah, we still haven't, Mike Moriarty has still not signed the contract on the contract or agreed to the preservation restriction that the city solicitor developed, the city solicitor's office. He told Jenna Wellhoff in the city solicitor's office in late January that he needed to check with others, I guess he's working with, on the preservation restriction agreement. I emailed him again, and he said, this was on January 28th, he'd be sending Jenna a proposal regarding the preservation restriction she developed, but I don't think he has. She did tell him of this meeting tonight in case he wanted to attend. So my question is, do we want to give him some kind of deadline? Because it's been a long time. All the other contracts at this point are there's one that I have to give you, Kip, the Annex lanterns to sign today, but otherwise everything has been signed. So, yeah, I'm just wondering if the committee wants to give him a deadline before, changing the commitment to funds, or withdrawing that commitment.
What did we give him in his right up there, what do you call it?
I have to search for that.
I mean, he may run into his deadline on that, and that would take care of it.
I don't think
What do
he
you call those
has a
things?
deadline like some of the others.
No?
Yeah, I can tell you, it was 32,000.
No, I mean, what did,
Schedule.
the schedule, is that what you call it?
Were there any
You know, those-
deadlines such as what we put in place for MIFA, for example?
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, the point is, he hasn't signed the contract, so those deadlines and conditions are in the contract.
But
So
what is
we're-
in the contract that he might be signing?
Well, I don't have that in front of me, but
Okay, but if
everything was discussed with him, there was back and forth, so I think right now it's the PR, the preservation restriction, that is holding him up, but I'm just really not sure why it's taking so
But
long.
if his deadline, is this fall, what's the point of signing it at this point in time? If his deadline is gonna be coming up, that's the point I'm making.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
written in the contract.
If that's written
huh?
in the contract, you might have to change that, too.
Yeah, that's true, and it makes more work, and it sort of delays us in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
So, yeah, some of those things would have to be pushed out, that's true, so, I just want to know what the committee wants to do about that, if you want to give him a deadline for responding.
I think we should.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think we should.
How long has it been, has he had these contracts on his desk, so to speak?
Well, ever since we approved it, which was when?
Well, actually, probably since we finalized the contract with Jenna, and I don't remember exactly, but when that was, but I think that, it was a very long time ago.
It was
it
at
in
some
the
point this fall?
That must have been the fall.
Yeah, I would say probably September, October, yeah.
It wouldn't, pardon me, Mr. Chairman, it wouldn't be a bad idea to just say, Mike, either sign it or we're going to have to recycle the money. It's not all that complicated. We're not doing a boys club, or we're not doing the conservation at the woods we were just talking about. It's fairly kind of straightforward. Maybe there's more that meets the eye, but it's not that involved. So I think if we...
He could reapply.
Okay, he could reapply, but it wouldn't be a bad idea, Mr. Chairman, if we said, look, have it done in whatever we all agree, another month, another 30 days, and that's it?
Yes,
Because it's not all that involved, really.
Yeah, I guess it's the preservation restriction that's an obstacle for some reason.
So the last point that is yet to be agreed to is the preservation restriction. And we have proposed what time frame in the agreement, do you know?
I'm not sure what you mean about the
Is it a
time frame.
50-year preservation restriction, 25?
I think it's 25 years, yeah.
And my assumption is that that's his concern, is
just
the
don't
length
know.
of period of the
Yeah.
preservation restriction. So
Couldn't
What if
we
Mike.
we
could negotiate
instead
on
said that any negotiations with the CPC concerning the contract would need to be completed before the next meeting and then signed within 30 days of any changes being put forward to the city council? Because if he wants changes to the contract, it would have to go back to the city council. So we could,
depends on what the changes are.
I
You know,
don't
if it's
know.
a significant change, I mean, I don't know that what went in front of the city council had what the terms of the
Just to remind
conservation
you,
or preservation.
we did discuss some changes he wanted in the contract, and that they were put in as he wanted them. So we have already kind of gone back, back and forth on that, and now, I guess, I don't know, the last I know is he needs to get the approval maybe, or just needs to, of other people he's working with for the preservation restriction.
So we just need clarification.
I mean, I think we should communicate to him that this is becoming a concern of the committees, and that, and that we intend to discuss it at our next meeting. And if it's still an outstanding issue, that there's members of the committee that are concerned, and that we may have to, someone may make a motion to take some other action at the next meeting.
So you don't want to give him an actual deadline? Because I think sometimes it works really well to just make things concrete and say, we need to, the committee needs to hear from you, something from you, or
Or what?
one way or another.
Or
The committee will,
Unencumber funds,
yeah.
Use it or lose it.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
Mr.
think if
Chairman.
he's had it in hand September or October, at this point, he's met with us several times since then concerning other projects and has not brought this up publicly at any meeting to us. This is the first time I'm hearing about it.
Yeah, I was surprised
So
he
that
didn't
to
mention
me
it,
is
yeah.
problematic. I feel like if he's had the contract for months at this point and he's not communicating, I think it's totally within the taxpayer's right to expect that money to be reallocated.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion then if we give him 30 days for an answer. The committee would like to have you to sign contracts to move on to our next batch of applications and contracts coming up. And let's put this baby to bed. It's not all that involved.
Well,
So
it's
I
just
think-
that if it's not going to move forward, that changes the calculus perhaps for $32,000 for another project potentially being funded this cycle. We're now in a different cycle.
Right.
So-
So
I'll second that.
Well, I want to make sure I understand what the motion is, to tell, if he doesn't, so by our next meeting, which,
Just 30 days, is that?
I don't know, that's why I was going to look, I wanted to make sure that
Okay.
Why don't you give them till the end of March? Just make it a March 3rd, what is it, 30 or 31?
Well, we're going to meet again before the end of March, right? We'll meet somewhere around the
The 18th.
18th.
Yeah, so if
The
you did it.
18th.
All right,
So we can say by the 18th, we need a signed contract.
Okay.
Or we'll take it
What-
up at the next meeting.
What if he's proposing, let's say there's a change in the terms on the term of the preservation restriction. Let's say we have 25 years in there, and he said, look, I've met with my board, and the most they want to do is 15. And that would be an issue to be discussed again here by this board. But that doesn't make the 30 days of sign the contract. You know what I mean? Like you're still, that's why I thought
Right, no, point taken, you're right. I mean, there may be some objections, Mr. Chairman, that
Well-
he's having with his board, but at least give us an answer.
Well, that's, I guess.
Tell us
that-
something.
So then could the motion be, Mr. Moriarty will need to return to us a signed contract or clear terms for revision of the contract by March 18th?
Sounds good.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
By what date did you say?
The 18th.
March 18th, okay.
And,
Or,
okay, so that's
The
43
funds.
Canal, and now we have,
I'm just writing this down, or the funds will be recommitted.
well, no, I wouldn't put or anything.
Unencumbered, yeah.
Is the 18th before our next meeting? 'Cause it should be a
That
couple
is our
days.
meeting.
No, that is our next meeting.
That's our next
Well, are we
meeting.
going to get it like at 5 PM and then we meet at 6 PM and then we can't take,
Oh, that's a good point.
because otherwise then it's like 60 days until, the next meeting, like the April meeting.
So maybe it should be less time.
Maybe say the 15th instead of the
Yeah.
18th.
Good idea.
I don't know what day of the week.
Okay, you can
So we're
make an
going to
amendment to that.
amend that.
Amend that.
A motion to amend.
motion.
Okay.
Take it to the 15th. Marco, did you
I
say?
don't know what day of the week that is.
Amend
but
to the
I'll-
15th.
I'll second that.
Before our next meeting.
a Sunday.
So that we can take it up for discussion, right?
Right.
So the 15th is a
Sunday.
Sunday, so.
That's
we
fine.
meet on Wednesday, we say the 16th, that's Monday.
Okay.
March 16th, okay. So
Okay.
did we set a date for the next meeting in March? Because I thought that we hadn't.
We
We
just,
have not
we
yet.
didn't
No, we
have it,
haven't.
we
But
just sort of
I
tentatively.
thought we were
Likely it
moving
will be
forward with
that
the
date.
third Wednesday.
So it's the third Wednesday of the month, though, right?
Uh-huh.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Or 11/18.
Okay, so a signed contract or a proposal for revision from Mike Moriarty by March 16th, or the funds will be unencumbered.
Yep.
To-
Or we'll have
I
a
mean,
discussion that.
Yeah,
will
I'm, not-
encumber.
I mean, I'm
I
getting
don't
into the
think-
weeds too much.
In the original motion, I don't think
Do
there
we-
was any and then. It's just,
We
here's
actually have
what
the
is
authority to
expected.
do that.
What?
What's that?
Do we actually have the authority to do that?
To do
To
what?
unencumber the funds if they've been approved by the city council?
Oh, sure. Yes.
We do?
I think we
Yes.
do.
Okay.
I believe you
It's-
do.
Let's just say we do.
Huh? No, it just seems, I'm always
It's a
careful
question.
about exceeding my authority.
But it-
Try to
but-
be. I've learned
So-
the hard way.
Do you
and I'm
don't
just-
want me to put in, or the funds, how about they may be unencumbered?
Well,
Well,
I
just
just,
put that we'll have a discussion about it.
Discussion, okay.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
as this,
Well, what you're
I've
asking-
deferred to the counselor whether or not.
We can unencumber it, and then we can give Mike
But
something to
all
put
the-
in front of the city council to let them know that we did that.
All the council has done is approved the funding. He hasn't signed a contract.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just putting it down, sign the contract.
We can
Right.
let the city
Yeah.
council know.
Yeah, I
if we
think it
do
makes
that.
sense, because if they're not even signing the contract, they can't get the funds, so if they're not
Well,
meeting.
and so you'll send him an email in
Yeah.
the next 48 hours that communicates to him the concern of the committee.
Yeah.
These funds hanging out there without a signed contract.
Okay.
And that if he wants to change terms, he should propose those as soon as possible. 'Cause when we meet next time, we have a motion and a vote to unencumber the funds, so.
Okay.
Okay.
um,
But it does raise the question, Mr. Chairman, do we have the, I mean, not for tonight's discussion, that this is over with, but it does, do we have the power as a committee to withdraw if someone violates the terms of the contract or doesn't get the contract done in a timely fashion? Do we, in fact, as a committee, say, look, you just lost the grant? We gave you 90 days, you didn't do it.
I
I
don't know.
believe you
I
do,
think
because
we do, because even like the Victory Theater, if they don't get their funding, we're not going to give them their money, even though the city
well, that's
council
in the
approved it.
contract.
That's in the
That was
But I'm
contract.
just
contingent
saying,
funding.
I'm
All
just
of these are
saying.
contingent funding, I
Yeah,
guess,
I'm
right?
just saying, so-
Contingent upon signing a contract contingent, so
Exactly.
we probably do.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Contingent upon following the terms of the contract as well.
And even if they sign the contract and they don't fulfill it, then
Right.
we can unencumber their money.
okay,
Annex
so
contracts.
let's move to the second issue under that item number 2, which is the Annex lantern.
Yeah, so this contract was missing in action for a while. I guess the city solicitor had sent it to the mayor's office, and maybe it got lost in the shuffle, but I finally got it. And I'll just have to change this to today's date. We just need your signature, Kip, right here.
Okay, oops.
I know that the lanterns are,
Just one
the
copy?
metalwork is done,
Oh, great.
and
Give me just
they've
one
put in the
copy of this.
glass.
So let me look at that.
And they're supposed to be bringing them to West Side to have them coated next week.
What's that?
The metal work is done on the lanterns,
Okay.
and they've
Yeah,
added
it's just-
glass to it, and now they're just waiting to bring it to West Side finishing so they can do the coating before it can be completed. Then they have to communicate with the
DPW?
DPW to figure out how to then electrify it.
Or that might be the G&E then, if it needs electricity. Okay.
That's good to know. I didn't know. So the metal work is finished. And what was the last thing you said?
The next steps are just bringing it to West Side finishing for it to be coated, which they should be doing next week, and then working with who they need to work with to get it installed and electrified.
Mm-hmm. Okay. DPW.
All right, so agenda item number 3 is status of the fiscal year 19 projects currently underway. Do we have any updates there?
Well, as you know, Smith's Ferry is completed. Holyoke Boys and Girls Club has submitted 2 invoices at this point. The last one was for new play equipment and materials for the seat wall for the basketball court. So they have, their total invoices come to $90,822.53. So they have, they still have $268,866.47 remaining, because their total award was for $359,689. So I'm just giving you an idea of, that's moving along. They have the, sign up saying supported by, sorry, my numbers were, so this is how much they've spent, $90,822.53. And right now, they haven't, the last requisition order is being processed right now, so they haven't yet received reimbursement for that full amount, but they will be soon. And I have not gotten any invoices yet for the stained glass project, though, as you know, they removed that damaged window, but they just haven't, I asked Bob Perrin, they just haven't gotten an invoice yet from that contractor. All the other FY19 contracts are now signed, including Pine Street and Chestnut Street, finally, and those were the most complicated ones, besides the Victory Theater. So that's it for the status of those projects.
Thank you. So item number 4 is the fiscal 20 budget update, if available.
We have paperwork here to pass out. First, I'll pass around the actual budget for this year for us.
And I have some new information to add to what Elaine is sharing.
Is that around? And then the other thing I'm going to pass out is what we're going to give to the mayor. We're going to be meeting, or I guess Amy sent it already. I would have waited till we had the meeting. But
He
that's
asked
okay.
for it, so.
That's all right.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to be giving to the mayor, or his aide. We're meeting with his aide a week from Friday to get it straightened out how we want to proceed on getting, our funds approved by the city council in a proper way this year, make sure that it's done properly, and that we know it's been done for sure. I don't think we have to wait until, and we have two ways to, two things that we have to do. We have to, in our ordinance, it says we have to give the mayor our budget to include in his budget. And then in the legislation from the state, it says we have to get the city council to approve our budget before the tax, tax classification, our tax rate is set. So I'm not sure if we have to still do both. I mean, if we could just do maybe change the ordinance so that we don't have to do that, and we could just do the fall one. It might be simpler, but that's another discussion you guys can have maybe in the fall. It's up to you, but we'll take care of the spring. It'll be in the budget, and it'll go to the city council. The city council will approve it, so the ordinance will be taken care of. And then in the fall, but if you can change the ordinance, you wouldn't have to do this spring thing and just do the fall one instead. That follow the state law, change the ordinance, take that out of the ordinance. It's not necessary. It's redundant.
All right, so if you could get me a copy of the particular ordinance, paragraph, chapter, and all that stuff, and what the committee wants deleted, I can certainly
Well,
file
we'd
that
have to
motion.
vote on that. We'd have to,
Yeah.
you guys,
Once you get that done, I'll file the motion, it'll go to ordinance, and
you can probably wait till the fall to do that if you want.
Well, there's,
I wouldn't wait too long, because sometimes things get sent to committee and
Well,
sit there.
the thing is, I don't want them to get confused, because we are going to be submitting a budget to them in the spring here, and for them, it's going to be through the mayor's office, but it's going to go to you guys, and you have to approve it. So that's,
So
the
maybe we can just do the vote sometime in the summer.
yeah, over the summer or fall.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that if there's an ordinance change, let's get the ordinance change. Yeah,
We can't change the state law. We have to do that fall thing.
right.
Yeah, so, okay, I mean, we could, but we'd have to, it'd be too much work. I don't want to, okay, so the first thing we'll take up is the approved budget for this year. I don't know why, how come it's so small? My goodness.
That's just how it prints from Excel.
Gosh,
But I
I
can
can't
tell
even
you
read.
what, I can tell you what it is.
Please do, because I
Okay.
can't read it.
Okay, all right, so the amount there that is available for projects is what's in the handwriting, 613,409, because the total amount is 645,458.50, but that includes the 5% for admin, which is 30,000. So that reason I wrote that by hand is to show you, and it's also easier to read, how much is available for projects. However, Elaine, did you have more to add? Because I wanted to share something I learned.
Not for that part, but, the other, can you read the, I think it says 30,000, is it? Or
Yeah, 30,000 is administrative, as I said.
30,000 for administrative, but under the other categories there, how much is it?
revolving account? Is
So
that the-
historic is 10% at 60,000?
Okay, so
Yeah.
they're all 60 then?
Right.
All 60.
60, okay.
No,
Yeah, and then
no, the.
No,
oh, yeah.
those three,
That's the
those three,
balance.
It's mandatory.
those are the minimums.
right.
Yeah, the 10%. However, what I learned is you also have what Elaine passed around, the estimated budget for FY21, the 659,155, and out of that, for projects, 629,155 could be spent for projects.
Oh, here it is.
And
Oh,
what
this
I've
is
learned
better.
is, I've been talking to a very helpful person who's the CPA staffer at Salem, and this makes sense from the conversations I had with Stuart, is basically, it seems like we're doing this a year behind, because most CPA communities are funding projects and recommending projects for FY21 funding. So what we could possibly do is combine, these amounts, right? Because after July 1st, that 629,155 for the FY21 could be spent on projects. So we could combine those two, and if we did that, then you'd have double. So you'd have 1,242,564 that could go to projects. And I know that's been an issue because the requests are, there's so many requests, way more than the amount. So, and that could also get us in line with what others, the way, not just the way other CPA communities do it, but it's also how the city budget works overall. Is there usually funding, based on the next funding year? I'm not sure how it is that we got behind, yeah.
That's, yeah.
But this FY21 may be sort of, it is an estimate, because I've heard that we're going to find out the state match for FY21 in March, so next month. So this amount, even though, yeah, I went, Mike Bloomberg asked for that information. I feel like we're talking about the candidate, but we're
I
not.
know, it sounds like it's got the same
I know.
name.
I know.
Yeah.
He asked for that, so I sent it, but it's possible that that estimate might be adjusted when we get that concrete state match. So yeah, I'm putting it out there that this could be a way to approach this situation. Is there's no, and you wouldn't have to do a new funding round right now because you have enough applications, and then you'd have much more money. Yeah.
It is interesting because to me, I don't know, it doesn't make sense because, and I don't know why they do that, the other cities and towns, because you don't have this money yet, and
Well, you do in July.
Right.
we
And that-
do in July, but then we're gonna get the new applications and stuff for this money.
But we don't give it
I'm-
out until the fall.
We don't give it up till the spring.
Well,
If
yeah,
we
But
did
it's
this,
still
it would
within this
change,
year.
it would change our entire timeline. So instead, if we did that, what we would be doing
understand.
would be accepting a totally different timeline where we wouldn't be accepting applications until March. We wouldn't be reviewing them until May. And the money wouldn't be encumbered until July. Like it would totally shift the timeline moving forward.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I think that would be very confusing to everybody, but
I'm confused.
That's just my opinion, I don't know why, do we have to do that?
Well, I mean, I think,
I just want to add that this is how the city operates. So the idea is not to be confusing, but to operate the way the city does it.
Yeah, the city budget starts July 1st, and we're gonna start this budget July 1st.
Right, but all I'm saying is you can go ahead and recommend where that money should be spent before July 1st.
so we remember at the beginning, we didn't fund any projects the first year.
We skipped a whole year.
We
right?
could have
Couldn't
if
you-
we had taken this approach.
Well,
And
actually,
maybe that's what threw us
well,
off.
that's what I thought, but all communities do it that way, though. They don't fund the first year because they're just collecting for that first year.
And plus, we didn't know, we didn't do anything.
We didn't know how much they were going to collect, and there was no
Have
baseline for what it
applications,
was
yeah.
going to be. I
I don't know.
I think we
It's
have
up to
enough
you
on our
guys.
plate right now without, unless anybody feels strongly about trying to combine 2 years' worth of funding for, but
So
And-
maybe as we look at projects, if we feel strongly about certain projects and we go over this budget, then maybe we can dive into this.
I would rather not, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'd rather not do that. I go from whatever you have in your wallet, you spend, that's it. And then, because other projects may come up in the meantime that are more worthy of the ones that we presumed we would fund. I would rather have 1 year, you got $10 to spend, that's it. The next year, you get $10, because another project may come in that's emergency or it's a higher priority, and now we're kind of, we're behind the 8 ball, so.
So, but maybe what we need to think about, maybe not tonight but in the near future, is to realign ourselves with when the city council and the city are working off their budgets. And
We are,
we seem to have.
no,
set
but
up-
we are. That's what we're doing. We're gonna be spending, FY21 funds in FY21, just like the city.
But I think the way that the city does it is that
You're
they.
asking to do
They,
FY22.
no, all I'm saying, no, I'm not. I'm saying the way that the city does it is they already appropriate, where they're going to, what they're going to fund now, and then they start, dispersing it in FY21 when that,
We will too,
in July.
because we'll be paying you, as of July 1st, we'll be paying you. In other words, you're gonna ask us to go into FY22, and
No, not FY22,
Yes.
FY21.
This is FY21.
that's right, and that's the year we're talking about. Next year, July 1st is FY21, and we're gonna be spending the money that we get in FY21 in FY21, just like the city does. The city does that also.
Late in 21.
But what happened-
Like now, we're in
Not-
20, like we're in
Yes,
20, and
for the
in the next
projects.
60 days, we'll be making recommendations to the city council as to
Right.
what projects,
So we could have made them in September.
And to be
We could
clear,
have made 'em-
right now, we're spending
We're spending FY20's money.
No, it's-
Yes.
we're
yes.
spending 19's money.
Days money.
No,
now.
no.
And not these coming projects, but I
Oh,
mean in
okay.
terms of everything that
We're
we've
Because they're
already
taking-
done.
Right, that's the whole point. We're gonna be doing 3 years
But
at
we're
a time
doing it-
as it is. We got 19 going, we're gonna have 20, and then we're gonna be doing 21.
But I think it goes
starting in
back
the
to what
fall.
you were saying last year. It's a way of collapsing it because right now we've got a lot going on. It's a way of gapping a cycle.
No, and I'm all in agreement with that. I wanted to wait, I didn't wanna do
But I,
projects
but I
this
think
year.
that's what, I think though that that's now,
We'd be
the
2
problem
years
that we're
behind.
seeing, I think, is that we have so many contracts that are still outstanding.
That's right, I
that
said
still
that at the
haven't
time.
moved forward.
Don't, but all the contracts are signed except
I
one.
mean,
Sorry, by outstanding, what I'm just saying is we have current projects that are still going.
Oh, I see what
Well,
We're
you're
then
still
we have one.
invoicing, we're still monitoring, we're still seeing things moving
And-
forward, while we're also
But I
trying to
think
figure
that's
out
typical
a
from
cycle
talking
now,
to
and then
other-
we'll be figuring out another cycle
But
in
here's
just
the
a
other
few
point
months.
That's very important about this, is that financially, to keep track of it would be a nightmare. I mean,
agree.
it's bad enough now.
I agree.
Would it?
really,
Because
for
we
us.
combined 2 years of funding with all the projects that we're currently invoicing, and I don't
Right.
think it was any different than
Right.
what we would do this year.
I don't think it would be that complicated. As long as we don't put out a request for more applications. We're just dealing with these applications, but we're just combining those funds so that we can be aligned with where we're supposed to be and how
But
the city functions.
FY22's money won't be approved until a year from the fall.
But
the city
again, next
council for us
year,
to
around
spend.
this time, we'll have put out the FY22, and you'll be able to recommend projects, and then by July 1st, you'll be able to expend them.
But that's what we're doing now. We're doing
Mr.
that
Chairman,
now.
let's vote on this. I mean,
No, it's not.
we're all
It's-
night. What-
I know,
This is,
It's interesting.
I mean, it's a really complicated issue, right? I mean, I think it's good to hear this, and we should all give it some thought. Like, what are the consequences and the benefits
You
of
guys are gonna
taking
need
this
a
approach?
very good treasurer to take over as of
Yeah.
July 1st. You're gonna have to.
Well,
meet
we're already
someone.
worried about that.
Well,
You're worried about that.
what I've found out is that from Stewart, that all the other CPA communities are working with FY21 funds right now. We're the only ones that are doing FY20. So, and
But it's working,
But it works for us.
but it's working.
It works
You know,
for us.
we're comfortable with the amount of money that we have available. We're not guessing what the matching funds are gonna be, what the collections are gonna be.
guessing.
Well, we're going to know
We're
exactly
guessing-
what the match is for March, so we're going to know what
All right,
FY21 is.
let's,
I just want to finish. We're going to know by March what that will be for July, so you'll know in advance what's available.
all right, let's discontinue this conversation for now.
Okay.
It's not, it's good information, right? It's stuff for all of us to, but I don't think anybody's ready to make a motion and to vote on combining the 2 fiscal years and doubling the amount of money that we have available and trying to revisit. We asked all of these applicants to give us, because we had restricted money, to give us these new proposals at reduced amounts, and now we're going to go, I think it would be, that's a big decision to make.
Okay,
So-
your decision.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions on, I mean, you all have the information now on what you can spend on projects. And, you know, we, besides the 60,000 for each category, we also have 390,000 in reserve, so that can also, but it can go for any category. So we're letting that build up, that's building up nicely, so,
Pardon me, Elaine, the 390,000, that's we have in the bank, so to speak,
So-
for
so
our
to
committee.
yes.
And that can be,
That includes what's gonna be left over from last year and what's projected to be the amount for next year.
so if we, just by way of an example to arrive at an amount, we have $613,000 and $500. In addition to that, if we so choose, we have $390,000.
Oh, no,
Okay,
that's
no, that's okay.
included.
That's included in there?
Yeah, if you look at
Okay,
this
no,
one.
that's fine.
If you look at this one, that's,
I can't even, I can't see
no, I
it.
know, look at this one here, it explains it better. And the only thing that's is the only thing that's missing from that 613 is the 30,000, which is the administrative.
Just to clarify that, the 613 is the final, that's how much we have in the bank, is 613, that's it?
Projects, yeah.
And then
Projects.
her salary is paid for, and the 613 is the result of paying her $30,000,
Well,
or whatever the budget amount is.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so available to us then for
Yeah.
220 is 613.
Right,
Okay, no,
right.
Thank you.
Minus the 160, 60, 60 for, that has to go to a specific
oh,
category.
yeah, no, I understand,
Okay,
I understand.
So the summary is, under this, for the fiscal year 20, we have $613,409 available to fund projects. And under the 21 budget, which is a budget and is based on certain assumptions about collections of, would be, and matching would be $629,000.
yeah, plus
Okay.
next year, we're gonna be able to spend what we're getting from the state in addition to our,
Whatever,
we have extra money
correct.
waiting
If-
in the wings.
Right. And
that we
whatever doesn't
couldn't-
get spent
that
on
we
any
couldn't
of these
include.
projects that are contingent funding also, that could end up, some of those could
Get
end up
that
coming
money
back in.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, thank you.
That would go in our revolving account then.
Anything else, any other comments on the budget? All right. So item number 5 is the fiscal year 20 resubmissions of funding requests, which I'm,
Okay, so I didn't get a chance to photocopy these for everybody, but I think I've been forwarding them to you, and I can tell you what they are. So for the Topfort basketball courts, I think that's the Holyoke Housing Authority. Their original request was for $100,000, and the reduced amount is $81,456.40. Let's see.
What is that?
that's
81,456.40.
Okay.
And I'm just looking to see here's what they said about that. We had an opportunity to sit down and review numbers and have determined that the Holyoke Housing Authority would be able to contribute a maximum of $35,000 towards this project. With that being said, if you recall, the overall budget provided us by Berkshire Design Group was $116,456.40, and we subsequently requested $100,000 in CPA funding. That's what they originally requested. Since Holyoke Housing Authority would still be responsible for those other costs not included in our CPA request, we have deducted $35,000 from the total estimate of $116,456 and are prepared to adjust our CPA request to $81,456.40 for this project, resulting in a decrease of $18,543. If you want to look at that, since you're doing minutes, I can show you that.
Amy, so the new amount is 81,500 roughly? The new
Yeah,
cost.
roughly. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is from Parks, and Terry Shepard. Her original request was $210,000 for Mayor Field and $200,000 for Jones. Yeah. And so now she is saying $155,000 each is her alternative request, if you wanted to do a smaller amount. She said, I have conferred with the city engineer, Mr. Robert Parent, and Mr. Andy Berger, a representative of O'Brien and Sons, regarding reducing our total request. If the request for a swing set, including a handicap swing, was removed from the proposals, that would bring the proposals down to $155,000 each. That's sort of sad that they would remove the handicap swing, but, and she said, as I stated at the meeting, it would be the Parks Department's preference to do one park project at a time. So, you know, I could, I know I've shared, you know, a chart with you about the amounts. I can sort of, you know, edit that and then send it to you again so you see what the alternative is for each of these.
Amy, excuse me, just for the sake of this evening, what was, to your knowledge, what was the original amount for Mayor Track, the original by itself?
For Mayor Field,
Mayor Field.
200,000.
And what was Jones' Point?
Actually, let me just double check.
I have it
Let me
right
just
here.
double check that, because
Jones Point, Jones Point was
Tell
200,000
And Mayor was
and
250?
210.
210?
210 for
For mayor.
What
for
was
mayor.
that? Oh, yeah.
210 for mayor
Right.
and 200,000 for
Jones Point Park.
Jones Point.
yes, that's right, 210 for Mayor and 200,000 for Jones Point.
I'd rather keep the handicap. Anyway, that's just me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Then the last one, to be honest, this is from the YMCA. They sent such a complicated chart, which I think I forwarded, that I'm unclear about what the request is. Did you understand that, Megan? It might be 88,000, but I just asked, you know, this is the first time I've had a chance to look at it, and I emailed her today, what is the alternative request? The original one was 148,274. So they've included this elaborate chart with different costs, but I just don't know what the request is. So I can, when I edit that chart that I sent you earlier, I can add this when I find it, when I find out.
I think what they've done by sending us this budget is they're showing us if we only wanted to pay for phase 1, it would be 88,000. If we also wanted to pay for phase 2, which is 55,000, it would equal the total amount that they
Oh,
had
okay.
originally proposed.
Uh-huh.
So we're just breaking it down to show us that if we wanted to pay for just phase 1, it was $88,000.
Okay, because those two add up to 148?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
I can't find that.
And I think those are the only ones, you know, that were requested to do an alternative
Well,
proposal.
I thought we made it kind of clear to everybody that money was tight, and if they had an ability to reduce the amount of their request,
Right.
that we may not have specifically said, hey, what can you do with the armory if we give you,
Right, well,
Oh.
speaking of that one, I sent the email out to all of them and said, if you do have an alternative proposal, please send it to us by this date. And I guess at that point, nobody had brought that up when Marcos was there, so he said, oh, I didn't know we had to do this. So I said, well, we may not have specifically said it to you, but, you know, we
read
had
between
said
the
it.
lines?
Well, if he had he might have left before that was discussed, since he was early on. So I said, I suggest that if you do have an alternative proposal, it would be a good idea to send it, but I didn't get one from him, so.
Didn't I see something from him that if we wanted to just do his in phases 2, that also, not number 2, also, that that we could do it by, putting the money aside, moving forward like you want us to do. In other words, not doing the whole doing the project over like 4 or 5 years.
Right. Well, I remember
think that's
also,
what he- yeah.
Marcos mentioning the idea of bonding for something like this, and
Yeah, right, exactly, yes.
it's a whole nother discussion, but
Yeah, that's another discussion.
we do have the
Maybe
ability to
didn't
do
seem
that
to
if,
like that, yeah.
Yeah,
well, I mean, each member would
that was another,
What he wanted to
decide
do.
whether they liked it or not.
yeah.
I know I would vote, but, so those are the 3 that we got in with reduced,
Yes.
and more may come or may not come.
Well,
I think that Terry Shepherd also identified in the meeting that if we were going to make a choice, she would much prefer to see 1 fully funded instead of 2 halfway funded or somewhat funded,
Oh.
and that she would prefer Mayor Field.
Correct.
That was what she put forward in her
Right.
presentation.
So thank you for the update on the budgets for the specific requests. And so move to item number 6, which we're doing already, which is a discussion of the fiscal year 20 applications. And, you know, the first facts or ideas about in that agenda item that I want to put on the table is, you know, the process. How, before we start talking about the pros and cons of specific projects and how we each feel about them, you know, the process over the next meeting, 2 meetings, 3 meetings, what we want to do, and specifically what I'm thinking is, you know, do we want to have a public forum where we invite people to specifically come in, and I guess it would require that each of the applicants comes again, and I guess it doesn't have to. Let's talk about that. I think that makes some sense, but I could come in and have a night when the public comes in and has an opportunity to weigh in on all of the projects before we start deliberating. I mean, the other way to do it is to deliberate and make our suggestions and present it to the public or not. I know.
I think the last time we did have those public meetings, and they were very helpful. In fact, when we came back to our first meeting after that, we were pretty much prepared as to what we were going to do moving forward.
I mean,
with
I don't know
those.
how the other
I
members
thought it was
feel
helpful.
about scheduling or even having one. I have mixed feelings, to be honest. I mean, I do feel like these are public meetings and people have an opportunity. They know what we're doing. They have an opportunity to come in and speak to them. But I very much see the benefit of having a night set aside for just that. And maybe it's in a different venue where people have
Better access.
better access. And I'm putting it out there. I'm not
And
trying
also
to
they can
convince anybody one way or the other.
There's only one
Because I have
huge
mixed feelings
difference.
about it.
bring
Mike.
in their supporters too. That's key.
I think that's,
yeah.
I mean, they're welcome to be here tonight and they're welcome to be here, that, I do think, the process before we start diving into the pros and cons of each of the applications is an appropriate conversation to have. And I just don't know, what's the will of the committee? Do we want to schedule?
It's going to be Mr. Chairman, it's going to be one long committee if we go to a public meeting, like say at the senior center. It's going to be about all these projects and all the intricacies and all the passions, if you will, of the populace. It's going to be one long meeting.
We
And
did
there's going to
two-
be a lot of upset.
2 meetings last year. We split it into.
No,
we
that's
could
that's
split
fine.
it,
But it's going to take, and there's going to be a lot of broken hearts when so-and-so advocates with her group or his group and doesn't get funded. There's going to be a lot of broken hearts. Because we're all looking at this as a newfound money, for the lack of a better term. And therefore, now, let's do this. And sometimes the will of the people is not exactly financially responsible in some instances.
I just think this funding cycle is not last year's funding cycle. We have so many projects this year that are really good quality projects that we will not fund. So
A lot of broken
I
hearts.
feel like it's a little unfair to ask all of the applicants to come in and spend, invest extra time when I just know there's not enough funding to fund the vast majority of them, unlike last funding cycle when there was. If it was a good project, we could fund it. That's not the case this cycle.
Well, that's true, but then on the other hand, how do we know which projects we're going to fund if we don't? Well, we need to have a better idea, I think, from the public and even for ourselves as to which, if we're not going to fund some, which ones are we going to fund and why, and which ones are important to the public, and, we need to, the public is very important to this whole process. We have to include the public.
I agree. And I was the one last funding cycle that was posting every single project that we were funding to different forums and different Facebook groups, et cetera, so that we were putting things up for, public consumption. But I'm also thinking that we just need to be focused on the preservation plan, which I don't know if we talked about once last time. I was a member of the committee, or at least here, for a year before I even heard it existed, which tells you something about how we didn't use it last time around. And if it's not a document that's useful to us, I think that we should revise it or make it a document that is useful to us, because it should be what guides us in what is going to be funded. I do believe public support is important, but it is only one piece of the pie.
Well, that is the preservation plan is the public, that's what
The
tells us.
preservation plan is it says, here's our priorities. Here are the kinds of things you should be concerned about when voting. We've never reviewed the document as a group, but it is there.
Well, we did because we were here when we went through it. I mean, you just didn't happen to be here when we did it, so.
So,
But if we
So
could
this
go
is
a
a-
year without talking
I mean,
about it, that
you-
does
you
say
have-
something.
Well, but we know.
you're both making very valid points, right? And in the bigger picture, we take into consideration, each of us in our voting, a number of factors, right? How much money is available? What are the competing projects? What's the public support for this one? How does it comply with the preservation plan or not comply with the preservation plan? A number of other factors that you're giving consideration to when you vote up or down on any specific project. So, the plan is the plan, it's there. We have had and continue to encourage applicants and the public to come in and comment when we're deliberating on these applications. The question is, the first question is, do we hold a specific night, either at the senior center or at another venue where we're asking, maybe we ask the applicants to come in and give another presentation, or maybe not. Maybe we just have a list, this is what they are, and we talk about them briefly, a summary, this is how much money we have, this is what they're asking, this is what the application says. Any public comments about that? I'm thinking
Well,
out loud. I don't have.
Last time we did it, gave them 10 minutes. I mean, we didn't give them a lot of time. They were up there and done, and they did a great job. I mean, and I thought it was
No,
very
you're
helpful.
gonna, I think what Kip, excuse me, folks, excuse me for interrupting. What Kip just indicated is, look, folks, on March 30th, we're gonna have an open public meeting to Senior Center. These are the projects that are proposed to us. These are the dollar amounts. This is the funding that's available.
Now, who's going to come to that? No one.
Well, I'm sorry, what do you want?
Well, because if they know that their people are going to, the applicants are going to be there presenting their project, they're going to bring their supporters, they're going to be people there,
Right,
there's going to be
right,
public.
exactly, exactly.
And if they tell everybody who's their supporters, listen, get on your email, send it out, blast it out. But if you're just going to present facts, they're not going to come.
The reality is, there's, like anything else, there are more desires than there is the money to pay for them.
But that shouldn't be a factor in this. I mean, they know everybody who applied, they know we don't, how much money we have.
But the people
They
coming
know
to-
they might not get funded. That's part of the deal.
Elaine, but the people that go to the meetings may not know that.
Well, we'll make that very clear.
Well, one rule of thumb that you could use for guidance is that the CPA legislation does say to hold a public meeting, and it's interpreted to be once a year. And that public meeting is the one where, there's a posting in the public newspaper at least 2 weeks in advance, and then the week before. It doesn't say what that public meeting must be. I think for some communities, they might do it on the plan, like you were talking about, Meg, to get more feedback on updating, because most communities do revisit the plan, like you're saying, they revise it, and they use that, as the sort of, the guide for what to fund. Or it could be to hear from, the different applicants. So if we don't do that, we're just not doing a public, a hearing, which is normally what's, done once a year.
Well, but it could be this, the agenda of reviewing the applications are in front of us could be the public meeting.
Right, as
or it
long
could be
as-
a completely different
Right, as long as
subject.
you, we make sure that we post in this,
Right, I get that part.
newspaper and.
So,
yeah.
I mean, anybody else have any thoughts about scheduling
We'll have to do it in March.
a meeting, a public forum or a public meeting
Because
to,
I think,
to have-
Mr. President, I think if I'm not mistaken, by the end of March, we have to make a decision, so we'll have to have, if we're gonna do it,
yeah,
we have to do it in March. Yeah.
well, we'd have, so I don't. Is it-
I just feel like it's redundant. If we want to have 2 public meetings and ask them all to come in and
It's
present
redundant,
what they already,
Not for the public.
right, but the public also chose not to come to those meetings, which were public. So if next year, but again, I'm all for public involvement in this process. If we feel like the only way to get the public involved is to change the venue to the senior center and make it the posted meeting and put it on social media, put in the newspaper, et cetera, that's fine. But then we should make that our process moving forward so that we don't have 2 nights and then 2 nights of the exact same presentations.
That's what we
where
did last year, and it worked
Well-
fine.
Right.
I'm
well,
just
not
saying for
everybody's-
sustainability for this committee, we've already heard those presentations and spent 2 nights doing it. And for me, as a committee member,
And-
I would rather see us streamline that process moving forward so that we are not having the applicants and us doing the process twice.
Right, and actually.
It slows us down.
Another committee member did bring that point up last year. You're saying, Elaine, it worked
Yes.
fine, but I know that
one,
Mimi
that's all.
did bring up, why are we doing this,
But
process
she was
twice?
the only
Exactly
one.
like
There was
you're.
only one member. There's always gonna be somebody who's not.
Okay, but I'm just saying that it was
But-
brought
but
up, just
here's
like
the
Meg
thing.
is.
And
Here's the
let's
thing.
put the wild card in too, right?
Yeah.
Which is, what we're doing is making recommendation to the city council, and the city council is gonna vote. And I think some of this input would be valuable is what's the perspective of this, do you think the perspective of the city council? Do they want to see another round, another opportunity for public input, or would they? And
Okay, so my opinion, I agree with what Meg has said already. We have the one that's required. We do that, all right?
We didn't
Yep.
have the one that's required yet. We
Right,
didn't,
but
we
we-
didn't post it,
Right, but
we
we-
didn't post it.
annual public
Right.
meeting.
So-
That doesn't have to be this agenda.
Right.
Sorry.
But every other meeting we have, every single meeting we have here, just like every finance committee meeting of the city council, every ordinance committee meeting of the city council, DGNR, go right down the list. Every one of them is open to the public, and at every single one of those meetings and the full city council meeting, there's a chance for the public to come in and speak. They can speak at any meeting we have. It doesn't have to be on any certain night. They're more than welcome to come in. We have one person here. Thank you. And if you'd like to speak, just wave your hand, and we'll,
It's up to the chairman.
to,
Do you want to come to the mic?
Yeah, you have to
And
state
just
your name.
state your name and address.
Name and address, yeah.
So, that probably, microphone may work right there. Come in here and try that.
join
Is
us.
that going to work?
Jo-
And if it doesn't,
yes.
you can come up here. Green light? Is it
You gotta
green light
press the
on?
button.
That works, yeah. Okay.
Laura Clampett, 182 Locust Street. Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of having a public meeting. I mean, as you can see, I'm the only person here. At the previous meeting I went to, there were some other people, but I think the majority of those people were the applicants. And I think there is some benefit to hearing proposals twice and having some time between hearing the same proposal to think about it a little bit. I mean, I don't know if you necessarily need to have 2 meetings. I think for the second one, you could ask for a much shorter presentation. I don't think people even need 10 minutes, maybe like a 2-minute presentation, especially if they have any documents like available ahead of time. So if people wanted to really like dive into them, they could do so. But I do think there's some value in having a public meeting in a different space. When I've gone to meetings at the senior center, I don't know why, but maybe it has to do with parking or kind of being in a more residential area, but they're much better attended than meetings in city council chambers. So,
And
Thank you.
And if I can just add to that, I know we're discussing it twice, but for us, but if you have one public meeting and you want us to be asking them questions and the public asking them questions, then you're gonna have a really long night. That's why last year, had all this discussion last year, we decided to do a 2 meetings, we would ask our questions when they came in the first time, and then we'd be done. We go to the second one, it's the public that asks questions. We just sit there and we take notes, and whatever projects they are happy about, we just took the notes on it. So, I mean, that's another benefit to having the two meetings, the two
Elaine,
presentations.
Yeah, no, you're right. And there's nothing wrong, Elaine, with what you're saying, but the expectations of the public when they go to a meeting, there's only so many dollars we can spend on these projects, and we have more projects than we have money.
Yeah.
But people don't, we're going to be there for one. You won't take no for an answer. If you got, the public
course
won't
they
take
will.
no for an answer. What if they vote, what if they all vote and say,
They're not gonna vote.
well, my point is, why,
They're gonna ask questions and.
no, they're going to
and-
advocate, and they're going to
They're
advocate for
gonna
their,
say their support, they support this project, and that's fine, we take it as.
and what if they all,
And we take
we
it
don't,
under advisement, and when we come back, we're gonna deliberate and decide, which ones we're gonna do.
right, we will.
So,
Not the public, we
I'm
will.
Right, but you'll
I'm-
be
But you
guided
need-
by the response of the public.
hold on. I'm
Exactly.
interested in, because I was like super 2 days after my daughter's birth last year and was not at the public meetings. So how do you know, what do you take from that meeting? Right? So I've been thinking a lot about how do we know what the public wants? And I'm wondering what you took from that meeting. Like, did it give you a lot of information? Was it quantified in any way? And I'm thinking about like the CBGB survey that just went around, where they were actually asking for responses on a survey. Like, I've been thinking about other ways in which we might actually garner
I think
some
that's a great.
public support and an understanding of what the public wants.
I think they did a better presentation at the senior
Well-
center than they did to us.
But I think that's a
You know?
great point. We didn't really get, I mean, people just seemed positive about all the projects.
Yeah,
But if we
exactly.
had a survey, like you're saying, Meg, where we asked people, rate the projects in order of your priority, except that if they're just supporters.
Because how are they gonna know about the project?
I mean, it
No, I
is-
mean, if we had,
It's-
no, I'm saying if we had another public hearing,
Right.
and then at the end, or at the beginning, we said, here's the survey, after you listen to this, can you put, rate in
Oh, okay.
order, like rank
Yeah, but
these
that,
projects?
I mean,
We could do that.
Why have a committee? Then why are we here?
yeah.
No,
It's just information so that we would actually have some quantifiable information other than just, oh, I anecdotally think I noticed 3 people for this project and 6 for that. And I don't know if that's what happened last time because I wasn't there. So that's why I'm asking.
So this is a very complicated, because you can say on the one hand, a project that has a lot of community benefit, but only one person showed up to support it, and then another project that, in our opinions, but they had 50 people come out and support it because they were well organized and they.
Yeah, exactly.
But maybe what we could do is duplicate the survey in other platforms, like put it out on Facebook and Hello Holyoke. So
then-
it's not just people who attend,
But then
but other people.
they'd have to go
Same
online
thing,
to our
though. We get the
website
same
and
thing.
look up our projects.
Why are
and
we here
They're
then?
not gonna do
Why-
it.
And we're
But they
just going to
can
vote
still
on,
give
okay,
their
this one got
opinion on the
100 votes,
survey.
this one got 90, this one got 80.
How do they
And then
know
it's,
about the projects?
and what's also hard is,
Yeah,
I
when
have, the website is incredibly thorough with informative.
Well, that's what I'm saying, they'd have to go to the website and look everything up, and
Right,
they're
so
probably
I'm just
not gonna
saying
do
that there
that.
could be, we could make it available for even people who aren't at the meeting to do the survey. That's all. That was the thought.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea to do a survey at the meeting.
Just
yes.
like CDBG sent out a survey that's posted on the city's
We-
website.
but the problem, okay, so it's a piece of information for us to deliberate over, right? And that's what it is. Because people who are filling out the survey, they're not going to be doing the math and saying, okay, there's only 600,000 and this project
No,
is
right.
this much. So that
Right.
the value of that is
Just to know what people's priorities are.
It's a point of data, right, where you can look at it and say, okay, a lot of people who were there that night like this. A lot of people who were on, who have access to filling an online survey on, a lot of them felt this way. It is, what we're discussing is how do we measure public will and support for these projects? And there's a number of ways. We've tried to do it already, right? We've tried to say, hey, come to these, I said to every applicant, is like, you should have your supporters sitting behind you here. I don't understand why there's nobody here with you. And, well, we have letters of support, we have this.
I don't think the public has to worry about whether everything can be funded. It's just a sense of like, what are the top projects that you would like to see funded? You know, obviously that's a decision of the committee, and it's, you know, they, you know, then look at that information and, you know, have their own opinion and then figure out how it's done, and I mean, which ones they want to fund. And I want to give you an example that in terms of like ranking the projects, I had a really great conversation today with a CPA person at Salem, in Salem again, and she said the way that they handle ranking the projects is, for example, if there are 13 projects, they have everybody in the committee rank them from 1 to 13, each project, you know, sort of create a priority. And then they start reviewing the top projects. So like say each of you looked at all the projects and you sent me, you know, what your ranking is from 1 to 13, 1 being the priority, the strongest 1 to 13. Then I would like collate all that data and then come back to you and say, okay, these are the, you know, these are the 3 top projects that everybody agreed, you know, that they are the highest priority, right? Then the way that they do it is they go ahead and they fund those, or they try to fund those in their entirety. And if the money runs out, they just simply don't look at the others. That's it. They can't fund them all. That's just life. So that's how they handle it.
That's a methodology that works. I can immediately see flaws in it, right? I mean, so, I mean, this is the toughest part of our job, you know, on this committee is now when there's requests that exceed the amount of money that's available is deciding which projects to recommend for funding.
Right.
And so, you know, a smaller project, right, might not be a high priority, but it's affordable. It's like, okay, we have some money left over. You can move things around. It's a very and there's
their point is that they would rather see projects funded fully rather than partially. So they would rather fund fewer projects but fund them in their entirety so they get, you know, completed. Yeah, that's something that the committee has to decide, you know, is that, you know, you have to decide weighing these different criteria.
So we come all the way back around to, you know, the pros and cons of having, you know, basically a rerun of presentations. I would agree that we probably can shrink the amount of time to something like 2 minutes and cap each one out 5 minutes, whatever it is, you know, some brief period, some abbreviated presentation focused, and then have an opportunity for the public to ask questions or make comments of support on them. But we could be there for a long, long time on that, because it's going to be really, how do you have a line of people that want to comment about their support on any, say, pick a project, the Mayor Field. You get 50 people that come up and
if we have 50 people, I will be thrilled.
Well,
I will be thrilled.
Because we're going to need it.
We have a comment. Yeah.
It's up to the chairman, madam.
I just want to make a comment on kind of the difference I see between like meetings here versus public meetings is usually, I think part of the reason possibly people tend to attend like the meetings at the senior center more is that they're like, they have a defined time, right? It's like from 6 to 8, not like you show up here and you could be here. So, you know, in order to like stay for the whole meeting, you don't know what time it's going to end. So like if you have kids or whatever, like knowing that you're going to be here from a set time and that, you know, you'll hear the presentations from like 6 to 7 and then have a half hour for public comment. And people, I don't know, you know, however you want to do it, but people have like a certain amount of time that they can speak and, you know, maybe you hear like 5 comments on each project or something like that. And so like everyone kind of knows the parameters. So then you guys aren't there like indefinitely, the public's not there indefinitely. And I think that might help solve some of the problems.
So what's the will of the committee?
Well, yeah,
What
so
do we
take
want
a
to do
vote.
about
Take a
this?
vote.
I mean,
who wants to have a meeting and who doesn't?
But
we don't have to make a, do we have to make a motion to?
No, you
Well,
don't
you
have to make a
talked about
motion, just vote.
process though. So we've talked about, do we review the preservation plan, do we have a public meeting? But even if we do have a public meeting, that's just a piece of the process.
Right, of
Like, I
course.
think you started with a very zoomed out version
Right.
of what is the process. So it would help me if we had a sense of timeline. Like, at which point are we hoping to say, by this meeting, we've made all of our recommendations to the city council? And then we can backwards plan from what would we do in those meetings?
Well, I mean, in the past, we've deliberated. It's taken a few rounds to go around and say, I like this one. Well, let's table that one. Let's fund this. Then let's look and see how much money we have. I mean, I'm prepared to start doing that tonight, Now, if we're going to have a public meeting, that's the next question. Do we schedule a public meeting, or do we schedule our deliberations over the fiscal year 20 applications? And if we have a public meeting, then we're going to have the deliberations shortly then after, because we really do need to start moving, make decisions about what projects we're going to recommend for funding. And
Did we
Yeah,
meet
we-
more often during this timeframe?
Yeah, no, we did that already for this year, but, except for the
did.
public meetings. But I remember we had, in the preservation plan, we do have a timeline, and remember you did make some adjustments to that.
Yeah.
And I believe it was by the end of March that we had to make a decision so that we could get our,
It was,
the projects to the
So-
city council.
do,
So do we have time?
well, I mean, if we have our next committee meeting
18.
on the 18th, then we have,
We should
Three,
have a
um,
public
3
hearing
weeks.
before that.
right, so we should have it, maybe it's the week before that. No, I would say just a week before, give people time, and
And do just one?
so just do it
But
at,
first, we
just to
should
have.
vote as
okay.
to whether we're going to have a public.
Well, this
meeting.
is that, when we're talking
We can't-
theoretical.
And it's Holyoke. I feel like we can't do the public meeting until after St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, that's not.
It's the green season.
Also, remember, we need
We
to
can't.
post this 2 weeks in advance and then 1 week in advance, and there's certain constraints about when you can, you have to get that to them at a certain date. I don't have to the Republic.
If this is the public meeting, it would be
Oh.
good to kill two birds with one stone, but
Oh.
the 11th is far enough ahead of St. Patrick's Day, I would think, to have a forum,
Yeah, we wouldn't
and get
interfere with that.
public. Otherwise, if we wait, we're going to be right up against it at the end of March,
Yeah.
trying to make decisions on these projects, and I think it's going to get complicated because there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of ways this money could get moved around, and
Exactly.
so, what do we think?
Well, I think you should take a vote on whether to have a public meeting first and then decide on.
Okay, so,
That's my opinion, but it's
all right,
up to
well,
you.
do we need a motion?
You're
Or
the
just
chair.
what's the will of the committee? Informal vote on whether you want to see a public,
Raise hands, just ask them to say,
Mm,
raise
pri-
their hands for those who want it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is going to be a public hearing or a public meeting?
I think we should do it as a public meeting if we're going to do it.
well, if we have time to make this our annual public meeting, then we should kill two
I
birds
think we
with one
might be
stone.
able to.
Okay.
It looks like
Yeah.
it's 3 weeks from now. I'll have to, and also, didn't we find out that we could now post in the Gazette because the Gazette
Yeah.
Yes.
covers Holyoke, and it might be less expensive, right?
is less expensive.
Yeah.
So so by a show of hands, who wants to see a public, or you have a comment?
If this is combining the two tasks to make it the one required, let's do it in.
Okay.
I agree.
I'm not sure if we have enough time, because 3 weeks may
Under
not be.
presumption that we do.
Well, yeah, I don't know what their deadline is for the Gazette for getting in the,
Well,
We're
let's-
important.
request.
I mean,
look,
but
we
it
have-
probably will work. I don't know.
I mean,
I have
that's,
to make sure that,
if it's the 11th, we have like
I'll ask
23
tomorrow
days. We have
about the
3
senior
weeks.
center.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask tomorrow about the senior center, if that's what
okay,
you want.
Mr. Chairman, then I make a motion that we have a public meeting at the senior center at the appropriate time that's legal and we can get it done by then.
Yeah, they have the equipment there too and everything.
We have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, there we go.
And is the next CPC meeting then agreed on as March
Still have a
18th?
quorum,
Or
So thanks.
Yes. Yeah, the
Mr. Chairman, our
meeting's
next
the
meeting,
18th.
is it going to be the public meeting or is it?
Well, we didn't,
Okay.
let's do a final thing on that, though.
Did you do the motion, Elaine?
What's that, I'm
Did you
sorry?
do the motion?
Oh,
So
he did, and I seconded it.
Has voted affirmative.
I'm just going to go look at the calendar out there.
okay.
Okay.
I don't have my phone to check my calendar, but I'm assuming, I hope it's okay.
I have a Holyoke Preservation Trust.
And I'll have to let you know, Amy, if we have the, if we can,
Holyoke Preservation Trust meets that night, but I can ask them to reschedule.
I'll find out tomorrow about the senior center, Amy, for you, if we
Okay,
can
cool.
get it.
Okay, so it is March 18th, the next CPC meeting?
No, the 11th, right?
11th is the public meeting. is
Right.
the public
Oh, the
meeting.
11th? I thought you said the 12th.
11th
11th?
is the Wednesday.
Okay, and then March 18th is the next CPC meeting?
If, I
Is
guess
the
we,
11th.
did we finalize that?
Is the 11th going to be our meeting?
No,
No,
Our
our-
meeting, but we're going to have it over there?
yes.
Or-
No.
The
11th, we're going to go over there, and it's going to be, the sole agenda is public presentations and comments.
So it's going to be a hearing, not a meeting, it's going to be a hearing, a public hearing.
If she gets the thing
Yes.
is in time, yes, it'll be a public hearing.
Hearing, right.
And then
And
we'll,
our meeting, not a meeting, not a hearing, and our meeting will be on the 18th.
Correct.
Is that, Mr. Chairman, is
let's
that
try and
okay?
stay on that third Wednesday of the month schedule if we can.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, our next meeting as a committee is March 18th.
Correct.
The public hearing is March 11th. Is that
Correct.
the will of the board?
Yes.
That's what it seems.
That's what we voted on.
Okay.
Do you have anything on that calendar in there that,
It's completely blank, which, so.
okay. So,
Well,
I know that
easy.
was a long conversation, but I think it was important to have, to try to get a sense of, how we want to proceed as a committee with this. And I do think it is a bit redundant, but
It is redundant, but.
But, it is, I think, the first go-round with the applicants. It means applicants have to make presentations twice. It means we have to have an extra meeting, but I think the value that's extracted from that is worth the effort.
Question, would you like me to create a simple survey that could be passed out to the people who attend that meeting where they could write any comments or rank,
Sure.
the projects?
Yes, that would be
please.
great.
But okay, but we may have to raise people expectations that
Well, they understand.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
just their opinion.
we don't have the money.
We'll see.
We can make that clear. I also was going
We're
to
not
suggest
bound
by-
that
Get hung,
if you
but-
put our advertisement in the Hampshire Gazette, if you would also reach out to the Sun, just because it's often read by folks in Holyoke. And I think it makes sense to post it on our Facebook page as well as on Hello Holyoke and
Oh,
some
yeah.
of
And
the
I'll-
ward
I'll
groups
do-
as
I'll
well.
do the Sun.
Okay, you'll do the Sun and I'll
Yeah.
do the
She
Gazette.
just, you write it up and just send it to me and I'll make sure I
Okay.
get it.
But,
Thank you.
And Andres will put it on the city webpage. Right?
Thank you.
Was that Ryan's father that passed?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah. I wasn't sure, but I
Don't
gotta
forget
send him
we're
a
on-
card.
We're streaming.
So that was our discussion of the fiscal year 20 applications, which is basically the process, right? I don't know if there's if we want to talk about anything else about the applications at this point, any other comments, or do we want to wait and deliberate all after the meeting? Or,
Mr. Chairman, is it your desire to have a complete dossier of everything we approve on the 18th? So when we walk out the door on the 18th, we have all the projects approved, the dollar amount, and that's it? Is that what you want to
No.
accomplish on the 18th?
well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the goal. I don't know that
That's our
we'll get
goal.
there, but that's
Yeah.
the goal.
So here's my question, though. Given that I would still like us to look at the preservation plan. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. And there was some discussion around if we would have more discussion about combining fiscal year 20 and 21. So if those two things are happening, as well as trying to decide everything that night, that seems unlikely to me. So if we really are trying to complete this by the end of March, do we want to look ahead and just say, we will also be having a second meeting in March? Or are we saying, that's okay, we'll actually finish this mid-April?
Well,
The-
I mean, let's get through the 18th
Yeah.
and see where we go, because we'll have time at that point to say, okay, we want to have a meeting in 2 weeks, or in 1 week, or tomorrow, or, let's just see how it goes. We can schedule that based on I don't think we need to.
Mr. Chairman, though, I mean, you raise a legitimate point, Megan, but those are philosophical questions. The more practical question is the contract, we have to come to agreement. That's got to get done. The philosophical ones you're talking about, we can do in June or May. But the first order of business is to get
I don't think it's
contract signed.
philosophical to consider if we're doubling our budget or what our priorities should
But,
be.
you know, I agree, well, I think they are, but I think the more important thing is getting these contracts approved of what's going to be funded. We got a lot of people there waiting for us. That ought to be done. The rest of the stuff we can do the following month.
Yeah, but in order to determine that, you need to know what the budget is. I think
Right.
that's why she's bringing that
So-
up.
And we do have a timeline that we have to follow, and the thing about, see, now I forgot what I was gonna say. What was that you just brought up?
The
about?
conservation, I mean, the.
Oh, the preservation plan, yeah. If you look at the preservation plan, you're gonna see in there that the public was completely against affordable housing. So,
Well, those were
I've
just.
read
so, you know, I mean.
I've read the
they're just
entire plan.
Yeah, they're just recommendations, so you have to take it, as, you know, with, because we're not gonna be totally against affordable, we already did an affordable
is-
housing project.
It,
Well, then maybe it is philosophical,
Well, it's not
but
philosophical,
but I do think that that document
but it's
is supposed to
recommendations.
represent our work, and if it doesn't, then we should have some conversations soon about changing that document.
But-
Because we're telling our applicants to read the document.
But the document is from the public. That's a public, you know, the public put that in there. We didn't write that. We did not
But
do
remember,
that.
there was critique of it that we got, that it wasn't representative, and that most
There was some
communities
mistakes, yeah,
do
there.
revise their plan as
Yes, and
time
we're
changes.
supposed to be doing that now. We're supposed to be, Mimi and you are supposed to be fixing our preservation plan with Marcos. He knows what needs to be fixed in there, and that needs to be done, yes, definitely. There's actual errors in there.
The committee might need to give us some guidance around exactly what the purview of that revision is before
Marcos-
anything
Well,
could.
Marcos
here's-
knows what they are. We already discussed that he knows what what needs to be fixed, and you need to discuss it with him. And
we
then
can.
come back
we
to
can,
us.
let's get through this task we have right in front of us, right? Now, we have to be mindful of what that plan says when we're deliberating. Let's get through this, then we'll put on the agenda a review of the plan. We'll have a meeting or a half a meeting where we're going through it, each of us with a copy of it and proposing changes to it. It was the creation of that document, we didn't have a ton of control over. We had an outside consultant that came in through a grant that somebody else applied for, and then they're walking us through this thing, and it's time to review it and update it.
Yeah,
So,
I think we have enough experience now where we can
think
critique
so,
it
too.
ourselves. Yeah, absolutely.
okay, and so let's just other business. I have one quick bit, just for information. A couple weeks ago, I got an email from Councilor Lisi that asked me to attend an ordinance committee, subcommittee meeting, that there was a 2017 order filed by Councilor
Oh, I saw
McGee that had some language in it which whether or not a city councilor should be a member of the CPA committee or not. And they asked me to come in, and I very clearly said to them, you know, in my opinion, having a council on here is very valuable. It facilitates communication back both for it. Now,
Exactly.
Councilor Lisi said she was kind of ambivalent about that. However, she was looking at modifying the order, or a new order that would have a change to the ordinance that would require some different type of a formal presentation as part of the recommendation. I don't know whether that goes anywhere. I don't know what that is, but that's my update, what I saw.
Well, there you go, the change
And
that
there's,
ordinance.
now
it's
we
gonna
have the
come up.
beauty of of that the benefit of the city councilor on this committee who can give us the update of what he knows.
So in my conversation with Counselor McGee, he was going to withdraw that. That was 2 years ago before everything got going. He's fine with everything. Was just going to withdraw it. Counselor Lisi is filing, she has filed a new motion that will go before the ordinance committee, of which she is the chair, and we'll see what comes out of that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, you know, we'll see what comes out of that.
When will that happen?
I refuse to predict anything that goes to committee as to what the timeline is on it.
Okay.
So, and I'll just add, I'll add that when I got here, Councilor Lisi asked me if other members of the committee were going to be attending that subcommittee meeting, and I was
It's
told,
wide.
I was confused as to whether that was
Just
her
don't-
request was to invite other members of the committee. So, I mean, if this comes up again, I'll get clarification, and if I need to extend invitations to the rest of you, I will. But I want to make it clear, I did not invite you intentionally.
Oh, darn.
Oh, we didn't. You did fine.
I'm just trying to, right. Anything else? Anybody have any other
Mr.
business?
Chairman, as another matter to discuss is the matter of reimbursement and not having the obligation of the recipient of a grant to have to come up with the money out of his pocket, then we give him the money. I'd like to change that in some way, shape, or form so the guy doesn't get stuck with a $300,000 bill and says, oh, by the way, where's the money? And we'll pay you, but you got to come up with the money. I'd like to have that revised in some way, shape, or form, hopefully right after we award these contracts, so the people we're asking to, we're going to say, hey, you got the money?
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that I thought that, what happened last year when first we thought that was the case, that it was supposed to be that way. Then we thought it
I
wasn't.
don't know what we're talking about.
Oh, when you're reimbursing the people, when they, the applicants, when they
right.
do a project,
Uh-huh.
and you have to reimburse
Yeah.
them. At first, we thought that they did have to come up with the money first, and then you
Yes,
reimburse
it's
them.
by reimbursement.
But then we thought, well, maybe, then you heard maybe not. But then it changed back again that now it is, so that they have to come up with the money. So, and that's what he's asking, if we could find a way so it could be the other way around again.
The way that we are doing it is that when it's the city, I can pay the vendor directly, but when it's not the city, it's by reimbursement.
I would like to
And
have that changed.
Where
Mr.
does
Chairman.
that come from? Where did that come from?
That came from consultation with the accountant at the Office of Community Development. Or the CDBG, yeah, Office of Community Development, OCD office.
Oh,
That's how they do it. They pay the vendors directly.
But why
whereas
did
the
they
city-
do that? That's a federal thing. Maybe we don't have to do that. It's federal money.
Well, okay, but I had to figure out what to do, and I talked with her, and I've also talked to other communities, and
And they all do that too.
well, they don't all do that. There are some communities that create, it's a very a complicated thing. Sometimes they say that somebody could apply for, if they're in financial straits, that they might be able to apply to have money forwarded, but like a certain percentage of it, not the whole amount. It's not usually given, the whole amount is not given up front. So it's kind of based,
Well,
sometimes based on the circumstance.
they should be able to do something and get a bill and then present you the bill so that you could pay it. So that they don't have to pay it and then you pay them. This is all we're saying. It would just streamline it a little bit,
It'll crush the enthusiasm of the crowd if you've got to come up with 50 grand.
I know,
Oh, by the way,
exactly. I
Elaine, you
don't
got the
know how
50
they're
grand.
No, they know this in advance. This was
Yeah, but
put
where
in
they
the,
gonna,
in
where's
the
average,
application.
where's the average person who's
But they
gonna get
know,
that kind of money?
but it was in the application, so people applying,
Yeah,
know
it
that.
doesn't matter.
That
What-
keeps out
what is
people
the-
who can't.
Exactly,
Yeah.
What?
exactly.
I didn't hear what you said.
The ones that can't afford that won't apply because they know they can't do that.
Yeah, they're
Well,
stuck.
this is a whole other discussion.
I know,
that you
exactly.
need
That's what we have to
work
do it.
out.
Yeah.
After we award these contracts, we gotta
I'm
solve
with you.
that.
I'm with you. I would like to see people not have to front the cash and get reimbursed.
Right.
Let's figure out how we can legally do that.
So I think that's maybe for one of our future meetings, we can invite in the city auditor.
Right.
I think she could guide us through that process.
That's a great idea.
Right?
And see what's required by the state CPG folks and what's required by
So
the city.
CDBG is the federal funds.
The community
That's not the
preservation.
same.
The
Oh.
community I meant the
gave-
community preservation.
I gave everyone a stapled packet with a possible small grant application process. One thing that, and I think this is connected, thinking about the types of applications that we get and who applies. And who applies right now are people who are used to knowing how to go after this type of money versus people, a more diverse pool of people even knowing about it. And even if they do know, they're like, well, that's not for us because that's a complicated process I don't understand. So one possible thing that we might want to consider moving forward in future years is setting aside in the byline, and actually becomes like a separate subcommittee where you say, we're going to put aside $20,000 of the budget for small grants, and small grants are going to be under $5,000 or under $2,000, like you said, an amount. And then you put that byline, or that would go to the city council to be approved. And then that would be something that would be outside of the regular funding cycle. So anyone could come forward at any time. They don't need to understand funding cycles or timelines. They can have a project and they can come forward under that process and be under a completely different process than larger projects coming in asking for $400,000. So that was just something I wanted to put forward so folks could look at it and consider it, and then we could talk at a future meeting. I modeled it after Northampton's process.
Oh, very good.
Oh,
Okay.
Very good.
Micro grant.
Right.
And emergency funding, maybe we can use that for emergency fund. I mean, that process for emergency funding.
I have another item that came up a while ago. Somebody from Holyoke Media, I think it was, I forget her name, but she was filming us when we were holding a meeting in my office. She asked me if she would like to do a video about the Community Preservation Act, like focused on one of the projects that we're funding. And so I wanted to run this by you and see how you felt. For example, it could be the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club playground project, but I guess you'd have to think carefully about, because this is sort of a PR thing. Like, what is a project that you that you think would exemplify CPA at its best, or do you want to hold off and see what projects are funded? Like, it could be a parks project or something else, because I think that probably you want to think about the public's response and like, will they see, oh, this is a benefit to the most people, to the general public. So,
Yeah, that's,
If we're going to do that, that's, the Boys Club is the one we spent the most money on.
I do.
And probably is affecting
More people.
in the neighborhood that needs the most help also. So,
I agree. I think that's a good
well,
example.
one thing just to consider is that, the YMCA is also applying. And if the YMCA doesn't end up getting that funding, you'll have this video kind of documenting a sort of similar organization to the YMCA in terms of it's a private nonprofit.
well, we
So-
can't.
Mr. Chairman, why make it
That's
so,
okay.
About that.
why make it so
The
complicated?
other thing too, though, is we could do the stained glass windows, because I know that's the
Right.
most popular project in the city. But I do like the Boys and Girls Club project too, so,
I would be happy with them highlighting any of the projects that we funded,
that would be great.
so
So do you want to leave it up to me, or does the committee want to vote on which
Boys Club.
project?
I would make a
wanna
motion, Mr.
recommendation?
Chairman, is the Holyoke Boys Club.
Second,
Project
Second.
first.
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Who actually motioned that?
Do you want to be able to approve the video, though, once she sees it, creates it? No.
We have a private viewing. I think that would be,
They can do,
Just doing my
they
job.
will,
Mike.
all of this will be nothing but positive for
Okay.
the program.
Okay.
That's why I said they can do any of them as far as I'm
She
concerned.
may want to interview you.
No
for the-
there
thanks.
you go. There you go.
No, thanks? Okay.
You're the spokesman, I thought.
Who, me?
no,
No,
yes,
you
no,
are.
you are,
You're the
Mr.
chair.
Chairman.
That's not
chair.
spokesman,
Hollywood.
chair is
But
not
you're the
spokesman
public face of the
This is
community.
going to be Oscar night.
for a couple more months. All right, we have a motion to adjourn, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.